I'm going to tell you a special story. A story about how the universe was made. Do you know what the universe is? The universe is everything. Anywhere, any place, anytime. Do you think that things that existed now have always existed? No, they haven't. A long, long time ago, a few billion years ago, there was nothing except an emptiness called space, an immensity of space, with no beginning and no end. What do you think empty space was like? It was very cold, very dark, and very big. When we think of dark, we think of night, but our night would be brilliant sunshine in comparison to that darkness. When we think of cold, we think of ice, but ice is hot if you compared it with the coldness of space. Is this cold? This would be hot compared to the coldness of space. Suddenly, in an instant of great energy, an unknown force brought the whole universe into being. We don't know why or how, but time started and particles appeared. These particles were so small that even the smallest specks of dust would seem large next to them. In this measureless void of cold and darkness, light was created. It was like a vast fiery cloud, which included all of the stars in the sky. The whole universe was in that cloud, and among the tiniest of stars, lost among the billions of particles in the cold interstellar space, was our own world. But the particles were not stars yet, only light and heat. So intense was the heat in all the substances we know: iron, gold, earth, rocks, and water. Everything existed as a gas, as thin as air, no bigger than a drop of water in the ocean of space. This mass of heat and gas contained the earth and all the stars. As this cloud of light and heat moved through space, little drops fell, and some moved around in space, in a way that they would never collide or meet again. The stars are millions of miles away from each other, and the light of some takes millions of years to reach us. Do you know how fast light travels? In 1 second, light can travel around the whole world 7 times. In the time it takes to snap your fingers, light has circled the earth 7 times. Light travels around the earth 7 times in 1 second. If each of these stars were like a tiny grain of sand, then one of these grains of sand among the billions and billions would be our sun. 1/1,000,000th of a single grain would be our earth. The sun is 1,000,000 times bigger than the earth. It is so big that a single flame could hold 22 earths. The light from sun takes about 8 minutes to reach the earth. If we could travel to the sun in a spaceship going about 100 miles per hour, it would take us about 160 years to get there. There are in the universe certain laws which all things must obey, even the sun and the stars. The particles of gas were hot at first, but they began to cool in the coldness of space. The tiny particles of earth were transformed into rocks, water, and air. Their shape depended on how hot or how cold they were. These particles were whirling at a great speed, and as they cooled, they moved more slowly, clinging closer and closer to each other. This has given us the 3 physical states of matter: gas, liquid, and solid. Everything we know is a solid, gas, or a liquid. Why then are there millions of different types of particles? Each particle has given a special attraction for certain particles. They like some and they dislike others, so they form themselves with different groups. There are particles that like each other, sugar and water, and particles that don't, baby powder and water. In the solid state, the particles cling tightly together. They are almost impossible to separate. The shape of the solid cannot be altered unless great force or heat is applied. If the stone is chipped, the flints remain solid pieces of stone. The particles of liquids also hold together, but not so closely. They will have no shape of their own, and they will roll over each other. They will throw and spread, filling every hollow crack and valley in their path. They will push downwards and sideways, but never upwards. That is why when liquids are in a vessel, they take the shape of the vessel they are in. The particles of gases do not cling together at all. They move freely in all directions. So the particles form themselves into solids, liquids, and gases. Every particle existed on Earth is a solid, liquid, or gas, and the state of being only depends on how hot or how cold they are. At certain temperatures, some particles are solids, some liquids, and some gas. And so, while obeying these laws, the little drop of matter that was to become our world went on spinning on itself and around the sun in the coldness of space. After a while, the outer limits on this mass began to dance, a dance with the elements. All the little drops went on spinning around themselves in the sun in cold space. The particles on the outer edge became hot, cold, and shrank, but as soon as they approached the hotter part, they became hot and went up again, like little angels who were carrying a bucket of burning coal and returned with ice. If the particles are hot, they expand and rise because they become lighter. When they are cold, they shrink and fall. Because of this, the ball of fire gradually changed to the Earth we know. For millions of years, the dance went on. And finally, the particles settled down. They became first liquid, then solid, and some joined, forming new substances. The heavier ones were near to the center of the Earth. The lighter ones floated above like oil and water. A thin scum was formed, like the skin on hot milk that is cooling. The Earth had taken some shape, but the elements inside were still very hot and wanted to get out. When they are hot, they expand. There was no place to expand, so they burst out and broke the skin. It was like a terrible fight. The water forming on the surface turned immediately into vapor, rising up as the superheated rock and gas was released from within the Earth. The great fire heat produced ash, which was created a blanket of cloud cover. A veil of clouds covered the Earth, and the sun was ashamed. The Earth was hidden from the sun. Vapors came from the volcano. Waters rose and formed clouds. The sun's rays could no longer reach Earth. Eventually, Earth cooled down. More gases became liquids, and more liquids became solids. The Earth shrank and became wrinkles. The wrinkles became the mountains, and the hollows became the oceans. As soon as the rocks cooled down, water could return to the Earth, and it rained and rained water. A liquid filled every hollow, and oceans were formed. Above it was the air that we breathe. The clouds had disappeared, and the sun could smile again upon its beautiful little daughter, the Earth. Everything cooled down. The sun could shine once more onto the Earth. Rocks, water, air, solids, liquids, and gases. They are what they are because of the degree of temperature. The world spins around itself in the sun, now as it was millions of years ago. Laws are obeyed. The world spins around itself in the sun today as it was millions of years ago. The earth and all the elements fulfill its tasks and whisper. We hear and we obey.